Well, thanks everybody for taking some time to participate in Ascend and take some time here in the Producers Corner. With me today is Loren Hollingsworth. He's the president and CEO of Sophic Wealth Group. Loren is a highly regarded consultant to financial advisors, CPAs, attorneys throughout the country in the areas of advanced planning as well as tax mitigation and advanced insurance planning. And he's also a regular presenter at our IAMS Life and Annuity Academies, which we're going to be kicking those off here in a couple of months. So you'll actually have the opportunity, if you attend those, to meet him in person. So Loren, I know you're traveling all over the country. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time with us today to go through what I think is a huge topic and a huge opportunity for the reps out there.
Thank you, Curtis. It's a privilege. I love what IAMS does for their producers, and honored to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you being part of the IAMS family as well. So I guess let's get right to it because I've got several questions for today. So the topic of today is estate planning. I think most reps have an understanding of, an estate planning or an estate plan and why that's important. But you've really made this a focus over your multi-decade career. And so I guess to start with, why is estate planning and tax mitigation, what caused you to be so passionate and make that a big focus of your business?
Yeah, thank you, Curtis. I think it's probably the answer would be several fold. One is that when we're talking about estate planning and tax mitigation strategies or advanced tax mitigation strategies, we're automatically talking to a demographic that appeals to just about any financial advisor. We're naturally talking to people of higher net worth. They don't have to be ultra net worth or even high net worth, but we're naturally talking to people of higher net worth, and that creates some fun opportunities. I also think that proper planning, legacy planning is crucial. I've assisted clients over the years that have not done that, or their parents did not do that. And I've seen the failure to do legacy planning or estate planning cause tremendous heartache in families and rifts and conflict among siblings that didn't previously exist. And so I just think there's a lot of benefit that derives from doing estate planning. And I believe that as citizens, we should pay every penny in tax we are obligated to pay and not a penny more. So.
Well, and I think that's a good motto to live by, because I mean, certainly there's nothing patriotic about paying more in tax than you should. So
Agreed.
Yeah. So speaking of that, there's been a lot of, I think, nervousness, ambiguity, you name it, around the estate planning marketplace with the potential sunsetting of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act last year. And so we finally got some clarity with that, with the Big Beautiful Bill Act. One of those being, which, in Congress, nothing's permanent, right? But there was some permanency attached to the estate tax credit at, 15 million per individual, 30 million per household for a married couple. Certainly that can get changed, right? It just can't get changed based off of executive action. But with that limit being so high, I mean, how does that impact estate planning? Does it mean there's less opportunity, or can you touch on that a little bit?
I think it actually highlights just a different emphasis maybe on areas to focus on for estate planning. It definitely does not eliminate the need for estate planning. And I like your point, Curtis, because people often refer to the change in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act as permanent. But it's important to understand that its permanency lasts as long as Congress decides not to change it. So it really is intended, I think, to differentiate from the natural sunset provision of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017. So there's no immediate or inherent sunset provision in the current exemption levels. But with the national deficit with which we are dealing as a nation, and the likelihood that taxes are going to need to be increased for someone or someone's, different demographics. I definitely don't consider the current 15 million per individual threshold a permanent uh, threshold. So I think that that's a great point. But even beyond that, a lot of people forget that qualified assets are going to be subject to income taxation, not just estate taxation. And there is a lot of proper planning that could be done to mitigate the effect of that income tax, as well as state tax on estates. There are a number of states, New York notably, that charges almost 15% as a state estate tax or inheritance tax. So I think there are still many opportunities for proper estate planning.
Well, and I think you're right, and I think you touch on an important point. I mean, we hit 38 trillion in debt at the end of last year, beginning of this year, and I mean it's forecasted to continue to go up, and I don't see spending slowing down in Washington, and so there's going to have to be something that happens here, whether it's um, it could be through increases in tax brackets, but Congress is really creative about figuring out new ways to increase tax revenue. And so, having that exposure of assets that are subject to income tax, I think creates a huge opportunity with estate planning. So, for an advisor who maybe estate planning is not a core thing of what they do, how does marketing and bringing that topic up, how does that actually translate into life insurance and annuity sales?
It's a great question. One of the most effective tax mitigation vehicles on the marketplace still today is life insurance. Section 7702 of the tax code, the ability to borrow from the accumulated cash value inside a policy on a tax-free basis, both create very powerful mechanisms for mitigating income tax liability. And I still am a strong advocate for what I call a Roth conversion alternative approach, which uses properly designed life insurance to convert qualified assets, i.e., IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP, any of those types of tax qualified investment vehicles where people have accumulated wealth, and we can convert those into premium into life insurance and then take distributions from that policy on a tax-free or income tax-free basis and generate often significantly more net income for a client in retirement. Even a simple Roth conversion using, you guys have several powerful annuities that are designed for Roth conversion. So moving a 401k into an annuity vehicle and starting a Roth conversion on that would also most likely be preferable to simply leaving those qualified assets in and subjecting them to income tax upon death of the owners.
Yeah. Well, and I think a little bit to your point, you're doing that when taxes are a known quantity, right? So who knows 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road what that environment looks like. But at that point in time, it's kind of a reactive thing. So it's just, here's where we are and this is what it's going to be.
Much better to make choices when there are options available. And again, that's one of the things our firm offers are ways to help mitigate the tax on converting a qualified asset. We have ways to mitigate tax on liquidity events and high income earners. And so there are lots of things that can be done. People just often don't know about them.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the neat things about this industry. I mean, I certainly have learned that over the years is there's always more to learn. There's always new strategies. And then, certainly Congress keeps us busy with updates to different legislation, et cetera. So it's really just understanding what those opportunities are and how to apply them. So, I mean, kind of speaking to that, you've really got your finger on the pulse of the estate planning marketplace. What are over the course of last year, or maybe even going into this year? I know we're at the beginning of 2026, but what do you feel like are some current trends or topics that advisors should be familiarizing themselves with?
So again, the concept of a Roth conversion or a Roth conversion alternative on qualified assets, I think is very, I see a lot of comment or questions about those approaches because that becomes the most, uh, the greatest tax liability in often a person's estate would be those qualified assets. But when we talk about other planning mechanisms, so intentionally defective, irrevocable trusts are also a very popular conversation right now, specifically the spousal lifetime access trust, what they call a SLAT. Uh, Charitable gifting continues to still have significant relevance. Things like CRUTs and CRATs and CLATs. Um, there's a new player on the market. It's called an ING. ING stands for an incomplete non-grantor trust, and they have they have wings, which are Wyoming incomplete non-grantor trusts. They have DINGs, which are Delaware incomplete non-grantor trusts, and then they have NINGs, which are Nevada incomplete non-grantor trusts. So the different trust vehicles that are available out there are still of significant merit and interest. And in fact, I favor a plan that allows for the greatest flexibility moving forward because I truly believe things will change in the future. And I'm not sure any of us can anticipate exactly what those changes are going to look like.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, there's a lot of creativity out there on how to generate tax revenue, and so I certainly see that in the future. It's just a matter of what does that ultimately look like. One topic that we get a lot of questions around is the small business owner marketplace. A lot of advisors like working in that marketplace, but one question I have is estate planning. These are business owners, they have assets, but what are your thoughts on estate planning being a conduit to get in front of small business owners?
I think that's a great way to get in front of small business owners because most small business owners really are their only estate or legacy plan is to pass on the business, and so they just focus on building that business and hoping that that will be an asset that they can transfer. But again, unless they have done the right planning, that asset may not be nearly as significant as what they hoped for their posterity. And again, we're not talking complicated solutions necessarily, but fascinatingly, ran the calculation just a little bit ago. Someone who might have a business worth $5 million today, if that business grew at a 10% growth rate over the next 20 years, it would be worth $36 million, which would exceed the current threshold as a married couple for estate tax exemption. So it's fascinating, I think, how little someone could have in wealth today, and still, even if we keep the permanent, 15 or $30 million estate threshold indexed for inflation, might still be subject to estate tax, which didn't change. That's one of the things that didn't change in the Big Beautiful Bill Act is that estate tax is still 40 lousy percent of anything above the exemption. So
Yeah, well, I think a lot of good points, and you're right. I think a lot of these small business owners are so focused on accumulating and growing the business that not a lot of thought is given to, okay, well, what is the succession plan? Do I have a succession plan? And what is the impact of taxation on that? So, but, for an agent or advisor who is maybe wanting to get started in this a little bit, what might be a good way or a good topic to maybe bring this up in discussion with a client? How maybe could they get the client starting to get their brain working and thinking a little bit about, well, I don't really have a plan. Maybe I should be talking about this, but do you have any insight on that?
Certainly. I like always asking the question, are you getting killed on taxes? Because if the answer is yes, and that getting killed is in the six-figure range, then there's definitely planning that can be done. And then I would probably supplement that with simply, what have you done to prepare your estate for the transition as you exit your business? And whether that's voluntary or involuntary, because again, a lot of people don't like to realize that there may be involuntary transitions out of the business as much as there are voluntary transitions out of the business. So literally just bringing up the question, asking what they've done. You could ask specifically, do you have a trust in place, and what type of trust have you put in place? And is it a trust that's designed to navigate the changing estate tax environment that we're dealing with? I think that's a great way to open the conversation, and I think spark some questions and some interest that would open further conversation or discussion.
Yeah, yeah, no, really good insights. And that's the thing is, you've got what, 85 trillion dollars worth of wealth in the boomer marketplace over the next 20 years. That's going to equate out to upwards of 124 trillion of assets that are going to transition to the next generation. And so it really does create a huge opportunity, and I think creates a lot of great conversations. And to your point, there's different ways to look at that, whether it's we're doing estate planning on the back end, or what are some proactive things that can be done right now to disinherit the IRS in the future because of doing some tax planning when taxes are a known quantity and we know where they're at. So, well, Loren, I appreciate you taking some time with us to talk about this topic. It's a huge topic, huge opportunity, but genuinely appreciate you sharing some of your insights with us as well as the rest of the advisors.
Thank you. It's been a great privilege. Appreciate you and look forward to being of service.
Well, we appreciate that. And speaking of that, for those of you that are watching, Loren does a lot of joint casework type business. And so if you've got affluent individuals, if you've got some high net worth clients and you're just not quite sure where to go, Loren is an asset for advisors that work with us. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, we regularly have him present at the Life and Annuity Academy. So if you're wanting to come to one of those, which are a great opportunity to spend some time working on your business and learn current trends on the annuity, life, marketing side, you also get to hear some discussion around advanced markets and tax planning. And so we'll be opening up registrations for that here probably in the next month or so. But again, Loren, appreciate you taking some time, and I appreciate everybody taking a few minutes to watch this interview.
Thank you.